were farmers near Castlemaine when COVID came and shut our whole town down. And as the kids and I hid at home, my husband risked it all by working to keep our little farm alive, whilst I did everything that the government told me to. And I made sure that my kids followed suit. I'd always thought that the end of it all would be another war, and not me and my grown kids sitting here and watching the TV, and not me and my kids watching TV. And outside the windows, the wheat continued to grow as the barley rolled and danced with the wind. As the barley rolls and dances with the wind. But then the vaccines arrived to save us all, so we lined up and rolled up our sleeves. We lined up and rolled up our sleeves, gratefully, 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 gratefully. On a Monday night, my daughter suddenly died when a blood clot burst inside her lungs. Then a few weeks later, my husband found my son on our kitchen floor. We found our son dead on our kitchen floor. We buried our beautiful kids with all of their unrealized dreams. And outside the windows, the wheat continued to grow as the barley rolled and danced with the wind. And outside the windows, the wheat continued to grow as the barley rolled and danced with the wind. As the barley rolls and dances with the wind. And everyone knew what had happened, but no one would say. Together they were all as silent as the moon. And then COVID moved on, just like the flu. The only difference is that I was now alone. For my husband is gone now too. Our doctor told me that his heart that was so strong, it had seen him build this farm, had just suddenly given way. Had just suddenly given way. And outside the windows, the wheat continued to grow as the barley rolled and danced with the wind. And outside the windows, the wheat continued to grow as the barley rolled and danced with the wind. As the barley rolls and dances with the wind. So now I'm selling the farm, I mean, what else can I do? The fences need repairing and the harvest is long overdue. Plus I know the bank will come knocking soon. I know the bank will come knocking soon. And outside the windows, the wheat continues to grow as the barley rolls and dances with the wind. And outside the windows, the wheat continued to grow as the barley rolled and danced with the wind. As the barley rolls and dances with the wind.
Hey everybody, let's get going. I've had a little bit of time off. We'll talk about that later, probably with Lindsay. But tonight we're getting Rosemary Marshall on because she's going out on the Vax Bus and going to talk about the tour. So we'll get right onto that first. Hey Rosemary, how you going?
Hello, Michael. Thank you for having me on.
No
Yes, we're
problem.
off on the Vax Bus again. We're quite sure that this bus trip is going to be a very important one.
I think
We
so.
start, well, there's so much happening, and this latest business with our new CDC that Albo's cooked up for us is a very dangerous thing. It now means that the WHO can call a pandemic as and when they choose.
Yeah,
And that implies to me that they're going to be insisting that we get vaccinated as and when they choose. So this puts a very different slant on our Vax Bus tour, frankly.
yeah,
On the upside of that, we've had Erin Siri talking with Hoodie and John Larter and
yeah. It was
airing
amazing.
everything. So I think we're at a bit of a crossroads now. The people who want to be governed harder by Daddy, the big government, for some reason thinking this CDC move is going to save their souls. But I think that's going to backfire very seriously on them when they realise exactly the implications.
Well, let's just bring up the tour quickly, and we'll do this again
Mm.
before it goes. So this is where to find them. So it starts November the 25th. So it
No,
starts pretty
yeah,
soon.
no, November the 10th,
November the 10th. Okay,
2025.
sorry. Oh,
Yeah,
November
we're starting
25.
in
Okay. Yeah, so it's
Wollongong.
Wollongong first, Kiama, Nowra, Ulladulla, Narooma, Merimbula, Yass, Goulburn, and then Bowral. And so
And
how
we've
long are you
got,
going to be on the road for? Just
we're coming home on the 19th. We've got a pretty exciting time lined up. Sharon Cousins is going to join us at Wollongong,
oh
and
wow.
yeah, she's done some amazing exposés of what that dreadful TGA have been up to. Just she discovered that they hadn't fully tested 440 batches of these poisons. And when she started exposing that, they leapt into privacy mode and took it all off the internet. But I tell you, Sharon is relentless. She got onto the Wayback Machine and she found all the information out that she needed. It's been absolutely heinous the way they've behaved. Skullduggery doesn't even begin to describe it.
No.
And she just recently, she's done Excel sheets, all available on the Open DAEN. Really, you need to keep looking at that because they just updated it just the other day. And shockingly, the latest updates, I've had to write a few things down because it really is so appalling. There were 21 new adverse events listed. And by adverse events, to even be listed, because this is directly sourced from the DAEN, it has to be a pretty dire thing for it to be even registered because they're still resisting claiming the 14 deaths that are so clearly resulting from the injections. So we're dealing with people who've got blinkers on and blocking their ears and eyes and everything they can possibly block.
Why do you think that
But
is?
well, I think they feel extremely
Do you
guilty,
think it's
exposed and
just
embarrassed. But this
yeah,
latest round of
yeah,
exposés has been particularly upsetting, particularly for all of us who are doing everything we can to stop the young being affected. Because I'll just quickly go through what happened. 21 new adverse events. They were just added a couple of days ago. As people might remember, the TGA actually advised but didn't tell enough people that the public should not have any more injections if they're under 18. Frankly, no
yeah,
one
they
should have any more of
kept it
these things.
secret, didn't they?
Yeah, but they
It's like
haven't
it's
told the
hidden away.
pharmacies, as George can
No?
testify. I mean, we were
Yeah.
doing the rounds of the pharmacies just on Monday, and most of them are still injecting people under 18. It's just beyond
Very
belief.
Christian.
But these latest rounds, it was so upsetting. A 4-year-old boy, 18-year-old girl, 17-year-old girl, 18-year-old boy, 10-year-old girl, 19-year-old boy, and a breastfed child, a baby, was fed by a mother who'd been recently injected, and the little darling got cardiomegaly, whatever that is. I haven't pronounced that the right way, but I looked it up. Swollen limbs, shortness of breath, chest pain, irregular heartbeat. This is a baby, breastfed baby. It really, these people have no conscience, and that's the thing that's the most shocking. And just today I was speaking, I've had a couple of conversations in the last few days that it just reinforced to me again the importance of keeping on speaking out. I was having a chat with a lady today. She lives in the country, and she was telling me how she'd just had an interaction with a local paediatrician and his wife, who happened to be a midwife. And she brought up the vaccinations and childhood vaccines, saying, there is evidence now that this has not been a good idea. And RFK Jr. has made it, spent 25 years dedicating himself to spreading the word that these haven't been the right thing for humanity. Well, these two just started almost spitting chips at her. They simply will not hear of it. And Michael, one of the things that does seem to be apparent with the medical people who are resisting, it's not really about the health of us. It's actually about politics, and people are doggedly sacrificing their children to try and prove Trump and RFK Jr. wrong. It's a little bit like when they all started downing Tylenol, Panadol, to say there's nothing wrong with it, and they're all getting their stomachs pumped. I mean, it's hard to get your head around. It really is.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's like I think I saw someone said there's competing realities at the moment. People really believe they can be a woman, and they really believe it, and it's not true, but to them it's true. This is why Charlie Kirk used to say, he goes, it's not all these different truths, otherwise there's no truth. There is a truth, and it's extraordinary times,
Well, just getting back to the Vax Bus tour, it's the same crew as last time, which worked really well. I mean, I found it incredibly confronting, and I just marvel at what I call the old guard, like Meryl Dorey and Anita, who've been on this for 20 years. I think I'd be in a straitjacket if I'd been doing it for that long. They are the bravest warriors that you could ever meet. But it's going to be very interesting. Well, obviously, starting off with Sharon is going to be marvelous. And anyone who needs to find out their batch numbers, she will help them with it and be able to. She's got all that information. She's bringing her laptop, and she's going to be there to help. And all the other stops, we're getting bookings. There are a couple of places where we actually are not having bookings, so people can just come and have a chat, and they can do an interview if they choose to. It's just that because we haven't actually got a venue there, we weren't able to get venues. It still can be a problem. But we'd love to see you. Come and meet us. Come and do one of the 2-minute videos, or a longer one if you feel like it. Have a look at the schedule and you'll see exactly where we're going to be. But I think it's very important that we spread this word so that we can resist as much as possible and show our displeasure as much as possible for what this government is doing and the ridiculous impediments they're putting on our daily life, what with the access to the internet and everything, and how we're going to have to be checked and get an ID.
Yeah, I know. It's and Topher, I was talking to Topher, he reckons it's not going to work. It's just going to collapse, but we'll have to wait and see. But it's just the lies that is for the children. It's not. It's to bring in digital ID, which they're trying to do around the world. Up there, they're invested in some program, and they do not care for us. We are things, livestock to be controlled and sorted and categorized and penned and vaccinated and
Well, I was listening to Gigi Foster last night at the Good Nights. That was a good night there. Very excellent, a lot of speakers at the Golden Sheaf. And Gigi Foster had recently had to do a presentation to the government, and she was saying she was shocked to see the depths of the disdain that they view us with. And one of the politicians said to her, oh, well, you know that, it's a democracy and we've been elected and these people just kind of trust us to do what we know is best for them. But we don't feel like that about it. We expect some consultation. And for them to simply think that they have the cast iron ability to just choose what's going to be right for us is just so conceited and arrogant and unacceptable.
That's The Voice has been, they've put it past in Victoria, even though Australia as a whole voted no. So that's a proof they don't care. you know.
Well, you're just hearing Gigi, and she's not someone for making, sort of ridiculously over the top statements, but it was quite shocking to hear exactly how they do view us, and they simply do view us as chattels, cattle, chattels.
Yes. Oh, that's
Fine.
right. That's correct. Also, you've got to remember the racing like crazy to replace people with automation. It's happening in China. It's happening everywhere. So we are the working class. We are the people that for the
Peasants.
last 150 years,
Mm,
we've built the stuff and made these people rich. And now they can replace us with a new slave class, which should be automated robots. And
mm,
so they don't need us.
mm,
And let's be honest, they don't. But the that's not the real problem, because that could be sorted, because there's so many of us that they couldn't get away with it unless they had our
mm.
compliance.
But so many
But
people are so unaware still.
we're so compliant. We're so compliant, they don't want to know. They just, what I see happening, which is I think is why it's fatigued me, people are adapting. You know,
Mm,
they're not holding on to democracy or the freedoms. Oh, well, now we're in this world, and they're just adapting.
mm,
And I've said it before, that the only freedom they're holding on to is the freedom to endure.
mm,
And that's what they're going to do. And if you go back in history, all the Romanians, Yugoslavians, all these other people I've interviewed say the majority of people just got on with it. There was only, even when the
mm.
wall came down, there was only a small group brave enough to fight back. And then
It's so interesting. Yeah, interesting you
yeah,
say that. It's
and
our
once the
experience.
compliant knew that it was over, once it got so, I mean, they put up with, you talk to the Polish, they were saying you'd go to the store to get bread because it's supposed to be bread, and you'd come back with a vacuum cleaner because they had no bread, but they were
Mm,
giving vacuum cleaners away. And so it was
mm,
empty stores, full shelves and empty stores. Life was really peculiar,
mm.
and they thought it would never end, but it did. But here's where I see us. There's this drive by the powerful to control us, and they're not stopping. And
And the people who are architects of our demise are supposed to be the people who are looking after us, like the medical profession. I mean, every week
absolutely,
at the forest, every week we would meet between 6 and 10 people who come and say, something happened to me, something happened to my mother, something happened to someone. And
yeah,
yet we still every week get at least one person come up and give us an earful and say, oh, these are all nocebos. These are people who've got anxiety. They've been injected and become anxious, and that they've talked themselves into thinking they're having a heart attack. None of it's true. And they must be seeing at the coalface all these people who are having problems. In their surgeries, they'd have to be. So there is something very strange going on with a lot of the population. And I wonder
yeah,
whether these
it
people,
absolutely is
I
something
wonder if
peculiar.
those doctors are welcoming the CDC so they can give us all more shots. They think they're going to make more money. But my suspicion is that these doctors are going to find themselves redundant, because they're going to be the AI replacements. They're going to be the ones that we're going to be, do
That's right.
your own
Jason
medical.
has it there. See, this is they still have us trapped in the financial prison, and that's the
Mm,
thing. I mean, look what Albo's going now. You can buy a house for, is it 5% or 2%, whatever it is, to get people in, but they're going to get into a house. It still costs them a fortune to get in, but once they get in, then they're trapped. They have this
mm,
huge debt to pay off, which is just making the banks richer
mm.
and
Oh,
the shareholders, corporations richer, because you're paying back what 2 or 3 times what the house is worth, and
mm,
something like that. I don't really know economics, and you're completely trapped. So they'll come up to you and
mm,
go, "You have to have this jab. You're gonna have to do it.
mm,
Otherwise, what's the purpose of your life? You've spent the last 10, 15 years paying off this bricked up air, your little prison cell that you've decorated, and
mm,
to make it feel like it's yours, but in actual fact, it's a precarious hold,
mm.
and it's your own prison. It's a huge
Exactly.
shackle around
It's
your neck.
exactly,
This is where we're living now.
exactly.
You know, that's right, mate.
And talking to just people generally, even friends of mine who I would have expected to be informed, particularly, just today I was talking to someone who's actually very conservative and very concerned about what's happening. but she was completely unaware about the 15-minute city things, the chemtrails, completely unaware. She's just very distressed at what Albanese is doing, but she hasn't sort of ventured beyond that. She watches Sky News all the time and is appalled by the ABC, but she doesn't venture out of that, really. Actually, talking of the ABC, I've been up to all sorts of exciting
That's
things
right,
lately.
Brad. G'day, Brad.
I went to
704 politicians against 27 odd million people.
It is embarrassing. Well, I had an insight into what ABC reporters think of us just recently, and this man was talking at a small event just last week, and he said, oh, all those marches for Australia, what a disgusting, vile cesspit of people. All of them are racist, and all they talk about is pure hatred. This was an ABC reporter. And he happened to be someone who'd come from the Middle East, and we generously gave him citizenship here in Australia. And Qatar, where he comes from, won't accept even Gazans who are escaping hellhole horror. And he comes here. We bestow on him the greatest honour of becoming a citizen. And then he talks about us like that. And he's employed by the ABC. And I imagine he's on a 6-figure salary. And honestly, it makes my blood boil, the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw Avi was confronting an ABC reporter in Israel. And the ABC, I'm a real reporter. I'm just trying to do my job. And he goes, no, you haven't. You've just lied and lied and lied and lied. And I think, though, what if they're not lying? What if they believe it? And what if this
they
is...
do. Can I tell you, they do. I have absolutely no doubt. There were 2 other journalists there at the time. Oh, everyone was nodding like little nodding dogs. You know, that they were all thinking, oh, yes, this cesspit of racists who wrap themselves in flags and show that they love Australia, but they don't really. They just want white people here. Well, I mean, remember, we were there with Miley and people of all walks of life and all colours. I mean, I just found it so insulting. So insulting. And apparently and this man, he said, it's sometimes Muslims, it's sometimes Jews, and sometimes they hate the Chinese. Now they hate the Indians. You know, really? It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I just don't have any answers now because we've had 5 years of bringing up truth after truth after truth. This is what the vaccine bus is about, you know, and there is a mob who can see what we see. There's a mob who can see what we see, but just keep it to themselves or don't do anything, any action at all, don't share or do anything. And then there's the other mob that are just...
Well,
they're not even
I have
aware.
to keep hoping. I have to keep hoping. And I do hope that RFK is going to make inroads. And Aaron Siri, with his recent, his book and the exposure he's getting in America, I have to hope. And can I just say the AVN, having had, Meryl Dorey's been on this terrible trajectory for 30 years. They are feeling really positive now. And I have to hold on to that. They are feeling euphoric at what's been coming out in the last little while because they've had 30 years of silence. But it's never enough for me. I mean, my dream is for Big Pharma to be bankrupted by the time they've compensated every person that they have injured to the tune of something like $500,000. That would be my dream.
Yeah.
And they can afford it.
Daniel Nino's here. He's found our Facebook. G'day, Dan.
Oh,
there's a.
Hello, Daniel.
I was watching this, talking to this woman the other day. I can talk about this. It's about a family. I won't say who she was, but she was quite in despair because her grandchild had been born premature, and the doctors said it was because her mother was injured. The vaccine had done something to the placenta. The placenta was aging. Yeah. So it wasn't going to sustain. So they had to give birth to it early. Yeah, I think it was 32 weeks.
My understanding is that the placenta calcifies.
Yeah, something like that. But just to say this was, and we've heard issues of bones disintegrating, but this was the real truth. The mother, this woman who was talking to me, a nurse who lost her job, was actually saying to them, so you're going to hold off or at least study? No. Her son absolutely adamantly was going to Hep B from the moment the child's born and this and give them everything, do it all. Even though the doctors have said the reason they've almost lost the baby is a vaccine injury, he's still going to do it. So he's not doing that for the love of his baby. He's doing it for someone who has a love of something greater than his own child and his wife. A love to be a part of the society and be in the front of the bus where the teacher can see that he's there. And he doesn't give a fuck who he injures to remain there.
It's
so he just doesn't care about the truth. You know?
And when you meet parents with unvaccinated babies, I did a little video the other day of the little girl who's the child of a friend of mine. This little one, 14 months, didn't get any vaccinations, and the mother had to virtually run out of the hospital before they gave her the vitamin K. Excuse me.
I just go this to Daniel Nino. This is really interesting. I interviewed, and it's on Rumble, I interviewed a funeral director who'd been a funeral director for 50 years, 50 years in a town in Victoria. And he said to me, do you know how many babies and children I've buried who died of measles?
None.
None. In 50 years. 50
they don't
years.
die of measles. No, they need vitamin A.
And if they do die of measles, then I hate to say it, but maybe that's nature deciding that this child is incapable of living in this world. And the other children who get measles never have to bother with it for the rest of their lives because they've got immunity. We live now in a world which is full of autoimmunity issues. And that's right, Dan. It's because of the vaccination. That's right, Dan. The autoimmune disease that is crippling the world and everything else, like they talk about all the diseases children are suffering, chronic diseases, it's because of the vaccination. Thank you, Daniel. It's nice to see you finally told the truth. So
well, my niece was 8 weeks old when she got whooping cough, and it was unpleasant, but she was fine. And on the strength of that, my sister wisely didn't vaccinate her for anything else. And of course, that family had children that never had ear infections, never had anything, because the firstborn child had this experience, and she was advised by her naturopath. She said, well, the baby's had whooping cough now. Why would you bother? There's no diphtheria. There's no scarlet fever. The chances of her getting tetanus are rather remote. In fact, it's 1 in 10 million or something of anyone getting tetanus. I mean, that is really one of the loopiest things that people...
And there's been no studies.
Well,
that's what the intervening studies proved.
Yeah.
And the study proved, and they wouldn't publish it, that the vaccinated children are doing worse than the unvaccinated. It's out. They wouldn't publish it because he knew he'd lose his career. But they know it. They all know it. And you know it too, Daniel. You just do. You just don't want to know it because you're so invested, and you're going to have to face the fact you've vaccinated your children because of your love of the government. You know? So, yeah.
He's a real government-hearted daddy, that boy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
let's just go back to the study, because we'll love to get you back on when you're on the road. I think that'd be really great. And we'll give you a whole hour, and even whoever's on the bus can come on. But let's just bring the tour up again. Yeah, this is the Vax Bus. So 10th of November in Wollongong, 11th of November Kiama, 12th of November Nowra, 13th Ulladulla, 14th Narooma, 15th Merimbula, 16th Yass, 17th November Goulburn. And when I went to Goulburn, I'm pretty sure it had a big sign. This is a vaccinated town across this in the COVID era. And the 18th is in Bowral. So if you're there, why don't you come down and share your story? Because your story matters. Is
absolutely everyone's matters.
And that's where it is.
And Philip Altman is going to be at Bowral, and we're having we're going to be involved in a meeting with Philip and Raymond Coury. They've got a libertarian meeting that night, and that's going to be big. Anita and I are both going to do a brief chat there, but it's really going to be an interesting trip. So even if we haven't got a venue, come along and meet with us. We'd love to see you. And all the stories. I mean, the thing I love best is when people bring along their unvaccinated babies and we can kiss and cuddle them. We just love that because they're so animated and bright-eyed and gorgeous. Yeah, we're all baby lovers. We really love our kids. We love all the kids.
That's gorgeous. It's great to have you on, Rosemary. I'll get you on probably next week. We're just getting ourselves restarted now as we head to Christmas.
Lovely seeing you.
I'm going to get
Thank
Lindsay
you.
on next. So Lindsay's going to
Thank
come
you.
on because going from there. So I'm just going to play a new song before that. But just telling you the Farmer's song, the Emily James Trio, I sent them the Farmer's Wife song. They're redoing it now. So next few weeks, we're going to have a human version of that. So that's exciting.
Wonderful.
Take care, Rosemary. Keep up the
Thanks
great
so
work.
much.
You're amazing. You are amazing.
Bye-bye.
See you, Gorge. Okay, this is really a really old song that I used to write when I think I wrote this when I was about 20. And yeah, maybe 19 or 20. And I was always wanting to fall head over heels or have this great passionate love affair. And so I used to write about this person who I'd never met at that time. And so this is called Taxi Lover because now AI has put it to music. So see what you think. The video is of a taxi being driven around New York. And after this, we'll get back and have Lindsay on. So this is Taxi Lover.
Taste my affection in a taxi filled with air fresh and sweat and polite kisses goodbye. And we will find lost faces in the windows and discarded hearts crushed beneath the gap where the two seats join. Down there where their pockets spill and their silent farts collect, until the bleary driver come night shift's end will thrust down his hand and separate either you from me or me from you. So come on girl, why not slip down here with me below the false laughs and the silence of others. Submerged we'll slip condoms from wallets or graffiti our poetry along their spines. Deep hidden we'll swoon to the old lady's perfume, smirk to the popular draining their batteries dry, and touch to the whispers of the lovers wrestling. Will I ever find you, my love? That's when we'll kiss, madly kiss, liberated tongues escaping starving lips as the driver mumbles Sri Lankan at another set of red traffic lights. Aroused by our hiding, we'll stroke to their tempo, foreplay to their drugged and their drunken beat, before making love to the lonely tune of their fingers drumming on the vinyl. Drum, my love. Drum to me. Come on, my love, come hide with me amongst the pens, hair clips, and scrawled numbers discarded on the back of those spent flip-top matches. And together, For a night we'll try outrun the sleep, until the world has been driven to where it should be, and that inevitable hand will rip either you or me free, and leave the other here like a spent cigarette lighter, and leave the other here aglow with the ghost of our flames, and leave the other here with the fading glow of our flames.
One of the finds of my travels around this country that I love is Lindsay. And Lindsay is in Ipswich. He's a psychologist, and he's a real brother. And so I'm going to bring him on. We cancelled it because of I had a few issues last few weeks, and but he called me today and said we're ready to go again. And I was saying, yeah, we are. So let's do it. So we're going to have one of our, we call these fireside chats. Basically, we're outside of society trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And as Lindsay likes to put it, what can we do about it? G'day, brother.
Hello, Michael. Good to see you back again, mate.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I suppose we better, first off, how have you been these last few weeks?
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, you know, when you get as long in the tooth as I do, each day is a bit of a miracle when you manage to survive it. But yeah, I've obviously had some genuine concerns for you and your well-being, and it's great to see you, you know, back in the saddle and doing well. I was so impressed with your courage and honesty in telling people what had gone on, and yeah, I commend you for that. And we might even talk about that a bit tonight. But listen, before we started,
Yeah,
I've just before I came on, I had the privilege of watching your last guest, and I think I've thought of the perfect joke to finish with, given a couple of comments that were put by somebody who was obviously disagreeable with the Vax Bus even being in existence. So yeah. I've got to be very careful. I'm not allowed to make any kind of commentary on matters medical. No. So this joke is, man. No, this is a psychological joke. This is a joke about people and the way they manage their own opinions. So the story goes, and it's only a brief joke. The story goes that this guy looks a bit, you know, ragged and crazy. It might have been you, Michael. And he's sitting on a train, and the window's open a little bit, and he's tearing newspapers in little tiny pieces and throwing them out the window and creating all sorts of litter. And finally, another well-intentioned passenger said to him, "Look, excuse me, mate, I wonder, would you mind not littering that way?" And the guy said, he said, "But I've got to do it because it stops children getting measles." And the other passenger said, "But children don't get measles these days." And the guy said, "Yes, me throwing the paper out of the window is really effective, isn't it?"
It works. Yeah, we shouldn't go there. I'm in enough trouble getting Rosemary on anyway. But yeah, there's look, we're a free speech platform. We all have our views. Most people know mine. Lindsay's aren't like mine. There's we get on to talk about life because there's so many other things happening at the moment. But if you want to start with me, it's the most interesting thing when I posted that was there's such a stigma about mental illness in our society. When you get sick, those who love you rally around you to try hide it. Don't let the world know that he's sick. But when you get to a point where you do what I did to my face, which unfortunately I have a history of, I just got to a point where I'm in this new relationship. I mean, it's 3 years now, but I'm still in this beautiful relationship with Kel. And I'm thinking, I don't want her to hide me. I don't want to have her starting investing in lies. And I don't want the people around me and they're all sort of, we can make it, we can do this, and then fuck it. It's 8:32. This is how I was born. And everyone says, "Are you okay? You okay?" As soon as I'd finished smashing myself, I was fine, because the pressure inside had been equalized by the pain outside, and then I was cool. All I had to do was figure out what to do with my face for the next 2 weeks. But yeah, so I don't understand how it happens and why it does it. It's like a pressure valve breaks maybe once a year, once every, twice a year sometimes, depending on range of stress things. But I was diagnosed as a manic depressive when I was 30, due to, I don't know, I just did some extraordinary things, and I remember going into this doctor because I was all broken up. I'd had a big motorbike accident, and I was sitting there with him. I said, I just done all these things, and it doesn't seem to be me that did them. I don't know. I just can't comprehend what happened. Because they drugged me so much because of the hospital. I'd come back down, and I said, I've lost everyone. This is my first wife. I've lost my first wife. I've lost this. All this stuff is going on, and then he started talking to me, got me back and talked to me, and then he just said, well, I'm a psychologist as well, and I'm going to send you to another colleague. But he said, in my thing, you're bipolar. And so I started a thing on lithium, and the lithium, when I first started it, the first thing I noticed was I slept. I slept naturally for months. I could go to bed at, say, 10, fall down, fall asleep, sleep 8 hours. It's incredible. But then it started to wear off, and I just got fatter, and it wasn't working. And then, after about 10 years, I did it. And then they tried me on some other drugs. And then finally, we were really poor. And I was with Rahana then. And they sent us to see another psychologist. We couldn't get in for about 2 months. We finally saw him. He said, all I can give you is 45 minutes. And I thought, so I've got 45 minutes to tell you my life story. And then you're going to figure out what pill to give me. And he went, yeah. It must have been a psychiatrist. He said,
must have been, yeah.
Yeah, that's the psychiatrist. He said, yeah. I said, well, no offense, mate, but fuck that. It's my life. And that's the last time I took pills. I said, if this is me, this is the way I'm built, then I'm just gonna figure out how to work it. And that's what I did.
Good for you. I'd love to respond in some way if I might, Michael.
Yeah, go. It's all yours.
I obviously can't comment on the psychiatric profession or its observations about your illness, but I think I could be reasonably expected to make some psychological observations, and my profession is expected to have some kind of an idea about the way the brain works, and I feel really hopeless and incompetent when I try to comprehend how the brain works. I look at it, I've done all the university stuff and read all the books, and I kind of can point to the amygdala and the hypothalamus and all those sort of things. But that's a little bit like a 3-year-old trying to understand a television, because this thing that we rely on so much as a species, it's different to virtually any other animal's thinking organ. There are large parts of our brain which are replicated in animals across the planet. So the fundamental parts of our grey matter are peculiar to most living species. But we've got this incredible capacity to be self-aware, to look into the future, and to find different ways to solve problems. So I've dealt with people with bipolar, schizophrenia, a whole bunch of issues in the 30 years that I've been doing this. And I don't believe there's any such thing as a medication without a side effect. So I don't think that's me making a medical observation. I think that's a generally accepted truth. Even if you take enough water, it will kill you. So it's a degree of how toxic. And something like lithium, for example, is it's got what's called a very narrow therapeutic window. Did they ever talk to you about that, Michael? So there is a level below which, and this is peculiar to every person, you've got a level below which lithium will do nothing for you, and above which lithium will harm you. So that's that bit in between those two extremes is the area where lithium might just help you in managing your illness. And I'm not going to go into side effects. You've talked about them, but one of the ones that people have commented on me is the tendency to lose creativity. And you're an extraordinarily creative person. You're
thanks, brother.
Oh, mate, I'm in absolute awe of your playwright, your poetry, your prose, and the way your brain works. And if the price you have to pay for that is stepping out a little bit more out of the ordinary way ordinary people live once or twice a year, then if someone put that deal to me and said, "Hey, okay, Lindsay, you can create songs and poetry and plays the way Michael Grow Griffith does, and you can live that sort of wonderfully laid back, almost bohemian existence, but you're going to have a really tough time once or twice a year," I think I'd sign up for it. But if I already was that creative and they said to me, we can help you with whatever the things are that you don't like about the way your brain is wired, but it's going to kill your creativity, I think I would be making the decision that you made, Michael, and saying I'll put up with some self-harm occasionally. So that's one aspect. The other is, and this is a complex concept, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I'll touch on it briefly. I have seen you smoke a funny cigarette occasionally. And it changes the way your brain works, doesn't it?
What it does is it slows me down in the evening because my brain works at an extraordinary pace. And I know it does because people struggle to give up.
That sounds like a yes to me, Michael.
Yeah, and in the evening, it just slows me down a bit. But I'm still very creative, but it just slows me down a bit because sleep is the thing I really seek.
And I am offering no criticism or judgment on you using wacky backy occasionally. But the point I'm making with it is this incredibly complex, and I'm going to call it a bioorganic electric computer. We don't know enough about it to do anything other than try and imagine that's what it might be. But it has the most sophisticated capacity to alter its own chemical composition. Love changes the way your brain chemistry works. Anger and hate change the way that your brain works. And marijuana changes the way your brain works, just like lithium and all the other things. Now, from my perspective as a psychologist who is interested in trying to help people help themselves, the premise that I would put to people is if you feel a strong emotion like anger and that emotion stimulates a chemical change in your brain so that your thinking changes. Now, one of the side effects of emotional thinking is that rational thinking becomes dampened down. And this is almost universally acknowledged and recognized. So if your capacity to be emotional at the negative or positive end of the spectrum interferes with your capacity to be rational and use the intelligent part of your brain, which is the thing that differentiates us from the rest of the animals, if that's a no-brainer, that anger, love, disappointment, fear, if all of these things can change your brain chemistry, almost all of those things are manifestations of your own thoughts. You fall in love with somebody because they are appealing to you and your brain responds in a way and changes your chemistry. Now, if that can happen relatively spontaneously, my argument to explore is what if you could influence it intentionally? And instead of just being at the mercy of whatever emotions decided to be stimulated by your environmental inputs, if you had an awareness of what went on within your own head and you had a conversation with your body or your brain, and this, I'm not trying to give you therapy here, I'm just talking about a generic approach here. There is so much evidence to show that through merely the exercise of our intention, our will, we can literally change the chemistry of our brains. Now, I struggle to imagine why that's not seen as a first resort in something like what's labelled as a mental illness, rather than saying you're the helpless result of the spontaneous and random chemical changes in your own brain, and it's our job to determine what those chemicals should be, and we'll diagnose something and prescribe it for you. There is an absolute place for that. I've seen clients' lives miraculously transformed through the intervention of psychiatric medicine. But why wouldn't you try something like self-healing first? So, and I guess
it's interesting. I think when I first started, sorry to interrupt, but when I first started, I sort of lost everything, which is a thing that goes with bipolar. And so I was knocked on rock bottom, and I was broken leg and broken hand, and I was all smashed to shit because of the motorbike accident. And so I think I took it then because I was coming with the fact, what? And then what happens when they diagnose you, look back and they go, oh, so when I bought that yacht, that was crazy. When I was, there's all these crazy little things that I'd done. They all became in perspective, and it allowed me to see, okay, there's a fault in me somewhere. And so I was able to look at myself like a third person, and usually I could stay regularly. I'm quite high functioning with it. I can get through. I don't let people know because I know they won't see me as Michael. They'll see me, or the fear is that they'll see you through a filter of an illness. I don't like being a victim. The first therapist said, you don't have to work anymore. We'll get you on sickness benefits the rest of your life, And I was like, no thanks. So I work really hard. I like working. And I actually feel a lot of the time when I'm, I don't mind it. It's it's just me. So it's just because I was a social face, because I'm a social face here. I had an issue because all you see is my face, and of course my face, I had some explaining to do as well. So I either take holidays or suddenly I'm vanished. And that's where I thought this whole movement is about being truthful. And if we're not truthful to ourselves and everyone, what's the point?
Okay, and we'll talk about secrets and self-censoring in a minute, I suspect. But there's one comment that I want to make. I've watched the emergence of an alternate term to the word disability, and I really like this alternate term. I embrace it as often as I can bring it to my own awareness and use it. I think people who have been typically referred to as disabled, I want to believe that they are differently abled. That we've got this concept, and it's coming through stronger and stronger. Rosemary made the comment, or that came up in your conversation with, it was Rosemary. I'm terrible with
Rosemary
names.
Marshall.
Rosemary, yeah. I was thinking it might have been Rosie, but Rosemary. About the doctors are going to be one of the first people replaced with AI, and that's because whoever is running the world realizes that the only way that can happen is to get away from idiosyncratic patient-based medicine or psychology and move to consensus-based solutions. So you've got bipolar. We now need to find out what your lithium tolerance is, and we need to fix you because you're disabled. As opposed to the idiosyncratic, more libertarian, more patient-centered one of, okay, so you've got this challenge. How can we make the best of it? and how can we help you manage it the best way that you can. And if that becomes too much for you, then we can fall back on drugs. That's there. So I just I've from the very moment I've became aware of you, long before we met, I saw you as a magnificently different human being. One of the when I refer to somebody as normal, it's essentially a curse word. I don't value normal very highly at all. I want people to use their fucking brains, and that means they step outside. They don't throw the bits of paper out the window in the belief that it's going to keep measles at bay. They think about their actions, and I think there can't be any association between that, or they at least go looking for the association rather than just blindly trusting in it. But you and Rosemary were talking about people who just knuckle down and get on with stuff, and they tolerate the boot on their neck because it's easier than being different. It's easier than thinking for yourself. It's easier than being differently abled. So what are your thoughts about that, Michael?
Well, it's at the moment, I have to say it, one of the reasons I don't tell people is that there's so many people in society now that see any illness or any label they're given as like a badge of honor. I was listening to people in hospital going, I've got autoimmune disease and I've got this and I've got diabetes, and they're like, hey, look, this medal is for diabetes. It's almost becoming like a status. And I've heard that with the young people doing it. I've got PTSD, I've got this. Okay. They've always got something, and it's like a get out of jail free card or to lessen something. I don't know. It's hard, because it's something I never really discussed much. I've always right. There is one really important thing I do want to get to, though, but I'll let you finish first.
I just want to make a comment. What I think you've just identified is that there's opposite ends of a spectrum in the way people manage their own diagnoses or illnesses. Now, I think diagnoses are dangerous because they do allow you to be at that end of the spectrum where you rely upon it, take pride on it, and take advantage of it. Whereas someone like you is at the other end of the spectrum where you don't want the diagnosis to own you and determine you and define you. And so you go into some sort of avoidance and try to not tell people things. I'm an occasional enthusiastic and moderately competent amateur actor. I've been on the stage many, many times.
You'd be a great Seagull King, man.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that one day.
It'd be great.
But I did a play some years back, and in the very first rehearsal, one of the young men who was a part of the ensemble, he sort of got up and with some difficulty, he apologized because he was autistic. And he said, I hope you won't mind making allowances for me. And I took him to one side when we stopped for a tea break. And I said, can I ask you a favor as a fellow autistic? Can you never apologize for it again? That, I'm so grateful for the degree of autism that occupies me, because it makes me slightly emotionally and socially colorblind. I don't even notice people having a hissy fit. They don't have any impact on me. And I said to this young guy, you're confident, you're well spoken, you're great looking. Lean into all of that, and just deal with the autism as it being, your kind of superpower. Well, he has gone on to do so many wonderful things in the theatre.
Thanks, bro.
He absolutely stole the show in that play, by the way.
Yeah, I bet he did, yeah.
He was just his part was not a huge part, but everybody remembered him. And to this day, I guarantee they don't remember me, and I was the lead character. So, there's one other comment I'm going to make before we go on.
Yeah,
Notice the shirt. Notice the shirt. It's not a Be-Free shirt, but it's a brightly coloured shirt. Because after when we last spoke a month or so ago, I just happened to be wearing a fairly bright red shirt, and one of our viewers
Cheers.
went out of their way to contact me and say it was so nice to see you in a coloured shirt. You normally wear a light coloured shirt and you look like a disembodied face against the white background. There's, so a shout out to Helen, and I'm going to do my best.
Helen. I'll have to get you. This is from Ron, the hairdresser. Ron, I don't know if you're watching tonight. This is my favorite 832. He makes these, and but this is so. I did the video, and honestly, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't care. I threw my. Well, I did care, but I thought, nah, I'm throwing myself out there. I didn't know whether we were going to lose a lot of people, or the trolls were just going to go, we got him, or whatever they were going to do. So I was just going to roll with whatever happened. But what actually happened was an outpouring of grief. So many people contacted me privately, congratulating me on speaking up and telling me how they're struggling, or how one of their family members is struggling, a loved one or a child. It was just endless stories of mental anguish. And in the comments too, it was there, people coming up. It just made me realize, and I think this is maybe this is an important thing of working with you, is our country might be abundant, but it's broken. And a good majority of the people are broken. They're spiritually broken. Some are morally broken. That they're just lost. And I think what a lot of them are doing, just to try stay sane, is they just keep going forward. So you've got this rushing city. It's like a hamster on a wheel. Just keep running and running and running and running and running, and somehow it'll all work out. Where I actually think what the whole world needs is to go, why don't we just stop for a week? Just stop and philosophize and talk and figure out, okay, how do we get here? Do we want to be here? Where are we going? Do we want to go there? It's that simple. It's that simple, I think, a conversation to have, because I think the fact that so many of us were... Let me talk to you about what happened. This is what happened. I was married. I had a white picket fence, and because I'd quit writing, I was 20. I think I was 27. I was married, lovely woman, and I'd quit writing because I hadn't had anything published. I had a joke. My best joke was saying I'd be the only writer in history couldn't get his eulogy published. The paper would come back and go, this is good, but we're not accepting these sort of death note. Well, good luck with another death notice. So that used to be my joke. And I thought, screw it. I've given you all this time, all this writing. I love it, but I'm not doing it anymore. And suddenly I had my own business, a cafe, Mr. Griffith's Cafe, and I was married. It happened so quickly. And then I had a house with a white picket fence. And it was a really lovely house. It was literally, you could almost, it was in mainland, North Perth. So it was really close to the city. It was now it's worth millions. But I got and everyone was congratulating me. Oh, you must be so happy. Look at this great house. You got this job now and this, got this cafe and all these other things. And I was just... even when I was in the cafe, this is funny, I'd have this hour and a half break in the afternoon where hardly anyone came in. And that's when I had to get down to the books and figure out how to make this cafe work and really figure out some plans. Instead, I wrote my first novel. And my whole day would be about me trying to get to this thing where I could do 1,000 words. And then I came back, and I remember the day that my first wife did nothing wrong to me, but she wanted the house. She wanted this life. And she knew I was down. And then she said to me one day, why don't you start writing again? And that was it. Within months, I was out of my ass. I'd given her the house. But what I did is, we didn't have any children. And she was on this path heading this way. And I was just sort of tagging along, getting fatter and sadder. And then I walked out one afternoon And this is going to give me some bad press. And I was watching this woman kill these beautiful yellow flowers, little trumpet weed. But they're so beautiful over there in Perth. There's this yellow everywhere. It's stunning. And she was just killing them. And I thought, if I close my eyes for 30 years, that woman will still be killing those flowers. And I'm just going to be 30 years older. And that's my life. And something inside of me said, Michael, you're a writer. You can't be an artist and a writer and live in a safe cage. You have to live. And so she came back and I said, look, I don't know how you're going to handle this, but I'm leaving. I just can't do this. I took my old motorbike and a laptop and I left the house. I left her everything. And I just started my new life. And then I had a massive motorbike accident and up in hospital. As if God was saying, dickhead. But I woke up in hospital, and this is like, it was manic. It was because I don't like hurting people, and I really hurt her. But about a month later, 6 weeks later, I'd gone from 90 kilos. I was now 68 kilos. So I'd lost this huge amount of weight in a short amount of time. Hadn't hardly slept, just going full bore, telling people I'm going to write plays, and I'd never written a play by then. I'm going to write plays and tour around. I'd only seen one play in my life at that point, an amateur play. And so I was telling people there's all this weird stuff going on. And then I had the motorbike accident. They filled me so full of drugs. I remember just coming out of a drug haze one day and just going like that Talking Head song, where's my beautiful wife? Where's my house? And it was like, it's just, I know, it just didn't make sense. And no one would come to see me. All her family cut me out. Everyone, I think my father came in, my parents, and they were just looking at me and I'm going, they like couldn't figure it out. And I had nothing to say, you know. But it makes for a very interesting, as my mother says, it makes for a very interesting life, Michael. And so I've been blessed with an interesting life, even though it's not remarkable. It's an interesting life. And, but I want to get back to the outpouring of grief, because you're coming on this show and you're sharing your wisdom. And I think there is an open wound in this country of people who are struggling with the new norm of our country. It's not nurturing their souls. It's not giving them worth. It's not giving them hope. It's not putting a spark in their step. They're just going through the motions, and the motions are getting harder to go through. And I think I don't know how we could do it, but I think these are really interesting discussions to have, not just about schizophrenia, but depression and other things. And what do we do with it? Do we just medicate it, or do we see it? This is a real question for you finally. We get into depression. Do you medicate your way out of it like the medical thing suggests? Or is it possible that these are the heavy storms that maybe you should try going through it? Going into the storm like the bison do, going head into the storm and seeing whether you come out stronger or more enriched, or even more, just have some admiration for yourself that you got through it. And, but what are your thoughts? Because manic depression is rarer, but so many people are suffering depression. What are your thoughts?
Okay, depression's really tough. When I started practicing close to 30 years ago, there was no serotonin-specific reuptake inhibitors, no Prozac, any of those sort of things. And I used to go from referral to referral in morbid fear that I was going to get a depressed client referred to me, because depression is really, really hard to move psychologically. It's a tough gig. There's a very persuasive chemical balance argument that's very plausible about the fact that it's the presence of serotonin in our brains that allows us to feel not depressed, and that if your environment or your perspective of your environment tricks your body into thinking that depression is the appropriate response, and your body manages to evacuate the available serotonin out of your body, then it takes a long, long time for that little reservoir of serotonin to be replenished. So that's a very plausible chemical-based argument about depression. And of course, the pharmaceutical industries have now made hundreds of billions of dollars out of these medications that interfere with that chemical process for better or for worse. And I'm not here to make a commentary on them. But I'll tell you a story of my own experience. About a year ago, I had the confronting realization that I was deeply depressed. It had kind of snuck up on me. And it was obviously I felt like the plumber whose tap was leaking. But it was an awful realization because for the first 70 years of my life, one of the most accurate descriptions of me was that I am pathetically positive. So I was that guy who always found the silver lining. That if I lost a leg, I'd go, "Wow, I'm so lucky to have another one." That was me for 70 years, and then for all sorts of really important environmental reasons in 2020, I began to lose my innocence, and some significantly negative personal things occurred within my life and my family, and no one would have or could have blamed me for being depressed, but it robbed me of energy, robbed me of motivation. It kept me in bed longer than I would have liked to have been. We live in 100-something-year-old Queenslander that's gently sinking into the ground around us. So, I've got 1,000 jobs to do, and I wasn't doing any of them. And it was not the place that I wanted or needed to be. And so, given that I have been working with trying to empower people to restore themselves to psychological health, in my hubris, I thought, easy peasy, I'll just take some of my own verbal medicine. And so I began to have the internal conversation with my brain and my body that I recommend all of my clients do, where this is almost word for word. I would say to my body, listen, dude, for 70 years, you've found it really easy to be optimistic and positive and future-oriented and problem-solving and all of those things that have made your life really neat. And for all sorts of really good reasons, for which I can't blame you, brain, you've dumped us in this really big hole. And the only consequence of being in this big hole is that it's making all of the things that have made me dig the big hole even worse. So I said to my body and my brain, I know you're really good at being enthusiastic and optimistic and positive. You've got 70 years worth of experience doing that. Can you just go back to it, please? Now, I thought it was going to take about 10 minutes. It took 3 weeks of relentless internal conversations. And I honestly started to think I was failing. I started to get a bit panicky, thinking, oh, my God, I've been talking bullshit to all these clients for 30 years. And then I can't nominate the period of time, but it was in the order of 3 weeks. It was literally like the sun came up. Then nothing had changed. All of the environmental traumas and stressors and disasters and tragedies and adversities, all of those things were still in place, but all of a sudden, whatever this magic thing is that we all have between our ears, it got its shit together and it realigned itself in some way that I don't even want to know how it did it, but it did it. And I was so grateful that I spent the next 3 weeks saying internally, you've nailed it, dude. This is exactly what I wanted. Thank you so much. Let's keep this rolling.
Tell me how you did it. I want to sell it. Did it feel like the tide going out?
My wife has been saying for 20 years, can we bottle Lindsay? So
yeah, that's right. But did it feel like, because with me, I don't know, this is just a manic depression. It comes in like a tide, like a black tide, and then I go down. So I have one day of feeling down, another day really down. I don't want but things have changed, and then suddenly it goes, and I can feel it, and suddenly it goes, and suddenly I'm up. Like it's just like a wave came and left, you know.
Yep.
And so,
Okay.
but
Yeah, my experience was very different to that. My experience was like the classic, how do you boil a frog?
yeah,
So you increase the water so gradually, incrementally, that the frog doesn't notice it getting hotter. So yes, until I was deep into depression, I was unaware that I was even starting to sink into it. Plus the fact that my environment was a pretty malevolent environment at the time. Anyone who had any deep knowledge of the circumstances that we and I were living through at the time, they would have said, "Wow, that guy's a real candidate for depression." But I was too stupid to to do that for myself.
yeah, you're man. I don't stuff with this stuff,
So I share that personal story because I think it epitomizes my belief as a psychologist that I think we do have the capacity to influence our bodies and our minds with genuine intention if it just occurred to us to do it. Now, we are in a really weird evolutionary time as a species. If you and I think most people accept that we as a Homo sapiens has been around for millions of years. For the overwhelming majority of that, I've seen it identified that if you identified the time that humans had been around as a 365-day year, this latest era that we live in, this last handful of thousands of years, where we have become civilized, where we better manage our environment, and that's up for a discussion as well at some stage, I'm sure, where we are more cooperative, where we're wealthier, where we're healthier, where we live longer, that portion of that 365 evolutionary year would be about the last 20 seconds of the 31st of December. It's an eye blink, and we got no idea how to manage it. We are better off than every other generation that lived before us. And I know that the Gen Zers and the millennials are saying that we baby boomers have stuffed the world up and all that sort of stuff. No, we haven't. We've knocked it off course a little bit, but it will.
The generation before you burnt the world to the ground with World War II.
Absolutely,
they flattened Europe. They nuked Japan. I mean, okay, you didn't get your latest iPhone, but it didn't come delivered with a nuke behind it.
Exactly. Okay, so I think we have an evolutionary opportunity, and I selfishly want to believe that this group of people that you and I tend to associate with and connect with and talk to, I want to think that we might just be at the leading edge of this evolutionary thing, where we do the things like you alluded to. We literally take some time out to reacquaint ourselves with, am I the kind of human that I want to be? And am I heading in the direction that if I could choose it, I would actually head? Or am I trapped by environmental demands and debt and circumstances, and I just haven't given myself the opportunity to think of an alternative? Now, I am not interested in trying to tell people what those alternatives might be. I've already said to you, I think your current nomadic life is freaking awesome. It's got so much going for it. But I'm happy living in my little, crummy little cottage in Ipswich at this point, because it relieves us of the uncertainty, and that brings us full circle to why people stay in their zone of normalcy, because it's really scary to step outside of it. To walk away from that white picket fence required you to be borderline insane, because our definition of
that's what everyone thought.
Well, the people who are living the ordinary sane lives, they look at the people who step outside of those lives, and they can lionize some of them. They can look at the Beatles and the Elon Musks and the people who are famous and successful and go, wow, aren't they amazing? But if they'd have grown up with those guys, their success would have freaked the people out, because all of a sudden there is a distressing and disturbing comparison between their success and mine. How dare they be multimillionaires just for singing some silly songs, when here I am going to work at the accounting firm every day, and I work my ass off, and I'm stressed, and I have to keep the bloody lawns mowed and all that sort of stuff. There is a shared misery has its own security and its own attractions, and that's what I consider normality. And I think the kind of people that we are conversing with on these sort of channels are the ones who've seen behind the curtain and who want to find that alternative, but they maybe don't know what it is.
And the thing is, you can't know. That's the fear. There's nowhere to. I want to answer this question from Tad Askew. She's suffering from. So, what do you do, Mike, when you get a dark day? I don't. The dark days will probably last for about 3 days with me, or a little longer. What I do first off is recognize it, and then I try to evaluate: are there external forces causing it? So this is just a natural down because, I don't know. Who knows? Numerous things could be going wrong. If I can't find those things, then I theorize, because I never know, that this is a manic depression. And then I just endure it because I know it. It comes, you stay, you'll get this really dark period where you just, poetry is great, editing poetry, editing work. You just focus on the work, and you just let the crazy loons in your head do whatever they want to do, and then the tide comes in and you're back at it. And so that's what I do there. But that's only me. There are other depressions I've had that are much longer, that because I was feeling trapped in a life I didn't want to live. And I think a lot of humans feel like that. They're in a life where you're not where you should be. Your spirit says there's seeds of greatness in you, or something. There has to be more to life than just doing the work, paying bills, going to work, paying bills, spending a little bit of time with your family, going to work, paying bills. And it's just, yeah. And then I had a revelation that changed my life, because I understood that my greatest threat, my greatest enemy was myself, and that was fear. And I managed to visualize fear like a Siamese twin. And I managed to sit it out with me and look at it. And I simply asked it this. I've told people that people just laugh it off. G'day, Forsh. I'd look at it like looking at you, and I go, okay, fear, I've given you all these years, all these opportunities, like women I wanted to ask out when I was young, and I didn't do it because what would they think, or other things I could have done, or I could have, all this I've given you. I've given you all this time, all this stuff. What have you given me? And fear came back as like, what's your point? And it had nothing. Yep. And I tell people, you have to realize you're in an abusive relationship with yourself, and you've come to rely on the abuser so it keeps me safe. But it's not keeping you safe. It's robbing you of your life force. It's robbing you of your story. And so now when fear goes to me, I don't think we should do that, Michael. I go, okay, we're doing that. I spent years, if fear suggested don't do it, then I did it. As if to go, fuck you. And that's and so I had this battle going on where now fear is like, it's still there. It's like a little voice in the back of the bus. So if I fuck up, you hear this little, I told you so, or something like that. But it sits back there with the demons that used to control me, and they can't come forward anymore. They can't govern me. If they take over for a few days, I let them stay for 1 or 2 days, and then I tell them to fuck off. And I use those terms. I go for a walk and I go, fuck off. I'm here for one thing. I'm enjoying my life. You don't like how it's going? Well, fuck off to the back of the bus, because I'm in charge and I'm going this way. And anything you suggest, I'll do the opposite. So I know that sounds nutty, but that's how I conquered those depressions. So the depressions now are more manic things or environmental or the world, which is the other big issue, is the world. But within this period too, and this is what I want to tell people, this is like my book, Goodbye Road. When I set off on this path, you know, all I wanted, to be honest, one of my craving things was I believed I could write things differently from way other people were writing. I felt I had I had something to offer. And just before COVID, that was coming true. We had major directors fighting over pieces. We had, you know, it was really there. It was clear there. People talking about New York, you're going there, that you're you're a new voice. And this was what I'd wanted, not so much to be famous, but to prove that this voice inside me, this spiritual voice that said, keep going, keep writing, was correct. It just took a long effing time to reach it. And then, so when COVID shut down the world and I was given the ultimatum of, keep the theater going, get back in this, you've got $100,000 grant here, just get vaccinated and you can be back with your dreams, and you have to segregate your audiences. And in 1 second, I didn't even think about it for long. I just knew I can't do that. And manically, like leaving the white picket fence, I just got online and I said, the Wolf Theatre Company, my company, or share company with Hannah, and she was in agreement, will never segregate audiences because that is a cancer to the culture's soul and we won't participate. I was cancelled. So I threw everything I'd worked for literally all my life. I just walked away from the heartbeat, and then I was on Goodbye Road. Where the hell am I going now? That afternoon, I started Cafe Lockdown just because I thought, well, I'll just defend free speech by talking like this for an hour a day, and let's see what happens. Now, Rahana and my children are gone, and I'm sure they'll talk to me sooner or later. And that's just something I have to live with. I now live in a bus. I've interviewed thousands of people. I'm in the country, and I met Cal, and Cal and I have this wonderful relationship, and I would never have reached this Michael if I'd given in to fear, or if I'd corrupted my integrity by going out and doing something I knew I didn't want to do. But I'd done it to basically achieve material wealth. And so that's my personal choice, only my personal choice. I'm not putting anyone down and judging anyone else. But these last 5 years of my life, I spent so many years outside of society, in flats, rented flats, wherever I could dig, writing and writing and writing and writing. Seriously. I used to have this. Can I just share one joke? This is my favorite joke. I've had a lot of relationships. People hang around for a bit. And I used to tell people, I can sum up my relationship with the one sentence repeated 3 times. So say I meet someone, and the next morning they're on the phone to their girlfriend and they say this: he writes all the time. 3 weeks later, the same girl, and they're on the phone. He writes all the time. 3 months later, he writes all the time. Relationship. And I was obsessed with it. But it just helped me control my thoughts and made flowers out of shit. And so that's how I coped. And it's just something I did. Now, the last 5 years, I feel I'm writing the novels of my life through action, not sitting there writing it. I'm now within the novel. And so the reviews from Goodbye Lover coming out, the reviews are crazy, really great, but this is me. I wrote Goodbye Road, sorry. I wrote this with my actions, and then just sat down and did a few memoirs of it, and then John Stapleton said, let's put it together. So I've completely changed. and the depressions can't reach me as much anymore. And then I guess when they do, with so many pressures on from everywhere, as everybody's facing, unfortunately, my thing is to just have a crack or a moment where you break down, and I did what I did, but I'm free now. I don't care that everybody knows, because this is me. This is just me. This is just me. Some people fart inappropriately. Some have Tourette's. Me, I self-harm every now and again. There's, but I usually can control it. It really hasn't happened that much. So this was an unusual occurrence. It's been less and less and less depression. And what I really feel is that the most dramatic change is a sense of purpose, that you are helping people. And I think the helping of people, for a lot of people, and I see that in you, Lindsay, is very nurturing to your soul. People say, how can you do all these sad stories? Because I don't know why I can do them, but I can do them, and I can help the person. They get back to me and they go, that really helped. And people have reached out to me and said they love the story and they've changed. So to me, with what I am on this planet, this is what I want to do. We're talking now about where we're going next and what stories. The Vax Bus is doing vaccine injuries and stuff. But I'm really interested. We're obviously heading into a depression. I'm really interested in documenting not the great facts, not what the great leaders are doing, but how all those decisions that they make affect the everyday Australian in the trench of what is now a besieged lucky country, and sharing their stories and letting them know that their story matters and that they matter, even though society has basically convinced them that they don't. They do.
Can I make a comment, Michael?
Yeah, sorry, man, I ranted too long there.
That's okay, not a problem. It was beautiful to listen to. I think your recent catharsis of owning your mental illness and acknowledging it and being courageous with it, I think you've given yourself the gift that you've given all of those people who you've offered the catharsis of having them tell you their story. I think it's an elegant circle. I think it's awesome. There's a couple of other things that feel important to me. Sure. One is you are a larger than life individual, and I would hate to think that somebody would be watching this and thinking, yeah, my life's fucked up. I need to leave my family, because that's what Michael did. And that's what we're trying to feed and stimulate and generate is this idiosyncrasy of humanity, that you're an absolutely unique human being. I'm an absolutely unique human being. And it sounds trite when you say it that way, but that's what sets us aside. We're not a herd animal. We're not a flocking animal. We don't all have the same coloration and the same feathers. We're all different. And if we can recognize that our difference may not have the impact that Einstein or you might have on the world, but if I can identify that my values and my reason for living is to give some form of social and meaningful sustenance to the people that I love so they can have a good life and go on to be the best they can possibly be, then that gives my humdrum job incredible nobility, that I can go to be the accounts clerk at the big faceless company, and instead of saying, oh my God, nobody appreciates me, that it's drudgery, I can literally start saying, but I do this to feed my family, and I do this because I get weekends off to be able to spend with my family. And now I think the secret sauce in that is what you've done, Michael, is owning it, making it clear to the people that you are doing it for. Okay, I'm off to my boring, humdrum, mindless job today because I love you guys and I want to make sure that we can have a good weekend and a nice holiday every year. So it doesn't have to be the noble cause. It doesn't have to be Michael standing up on the hill getting shot in the hand with a rubber bullet. It can be the little sacrifices, the little overcoming of adversity, the things that the bigger characters might see as trivial. They're not. They're really important. They're noble. They're wonderful. They're magic. They're the things that allow us to feel good about ourselves. And I'd love to know what the weird difference is between the minority of us who did see behind the curtain and became part of this freedom or dissident community or whatever it's one day going to be called, the Be Freers, and the rest of the community who, even when they glimpsed behind the curtain and realised that it was an ugly magic trick, they would still rather go and take their place in the audience, go, oh, isn't that wonderful? Oh, yes, we've got to be a part of that. There's some fundamental difference, and it's going to take a wiser head than mine to work out who's right. But, man, I don't want it to be the majority.
Yeah, look, my life isn't for everyone. It's mine is mine. And that's the remarkable thing. With 8 billion people on the planet, each of them writing their own novel, their own way.
Mm-hmm.
Or some are sitting back letting other people write it for them. But I do want to say, and this is an acknowledgement of, because I don't think there's enough apologies to warrant it, but Rahana and my children had to go through life hiding my illness to keep up appearances in the school, to keep appearances in the theatre community. And I regret now that they had to do that. And I'm learning the lesson now. And the lesson was just basically fear. That was the last bit of fear. I thought, fuck it, I'm doing it. Fear was telling me, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, you know. And but that's it for me. And these are things you meet people over 50 and they have issues or problems in their life now, maybe problems with other people, loved ones in their life, that they cannot fix. They just have to live with it. These are the dents and the splinters in your soul or the scars on your heart that don't heal. Suicide. You lose someone to suicide, you don't heal. You learn to live with the pain of that, you know. And this is what life is. And I think I just imagine us reaching the end, and it must be extraordinary thing to be there. I don't know how it happens. I don't know if the angels are waiting for you. I don't know. We'll find out. I do believe there's something.
Yep.
But you must turn up sometimes with a sense of accomplishment, but also your spirit must be bruised and beaten. Even old age is brutal. You know, watch these people going around. They are. You know, my father's 87. He tells me I'm forgotten about. I might as well live on Mars. I don't have an email. The world doesn't want to know me. So he's got this little house and he's looking after mum who's ailing. And as soon as this bus, we've got a few weeks here because we're waiting on a part, mum is ailing and they're happy together. But he tells me the world doesn't care about us at all. And the only phone calls they get are scammers trying to scam them. I've got a beautiful play I should write to you, send to you, because when you can't get there from here. Yeah, I wrote it about them. It's very funny, but it's about the last of love, and they want to die together, but they can't commit suicide because my mum's a staunch Catholic. So she's trying to figure out how they can die together so they leave together. It's really lovely. Yeah. But I admire people more than they know. Let me tell you a story. I'm working in a nursing home, and it's a shitty nursing home, man. This is when I first came to Melbourne and getting shifts doing it, writing, and And I used to love the staff breaks. It's like talking to people. And if you talk to people about their lives, and just like in my interviews, they unpack themselves. If they were like, suddenly this person's telling you stuff. I remember a woman looking at me once and she was saying something. And I said, "Did your husband abuse your children?" And she went, "How'd you know?" And then she told me all about it. I don't know how I knew. I just picked it up from her micro expressions and things. It's not psychic. I picked it up. But there was this, I wrote a play about this woman. It's called A Trip to Berry. And what I'm going to tell you, I found it astonishingly beautiful, but in a sad way, but still beautiful. So this girl she's sitting there in a nursing home, she's having a fag. She's all crossed into herself. The legs are all wrapped around and she's all crossed, just fagging away. She's about 4'8". She should be living a relaxing life somewhere, because she's broke and so she can't afford to retire, or she just, she's working this very, very hard job, lifting people her age who are big, it's amazing, very tough. And she looked tough, she's got a face is tough, there's all tough about it. Anyway, I'm just sitting there and I started talking, and I can't remember how I got it out of her, but on her little milk crate, she suddenly told me this story in a half an hour break. I won't use up half an hour. Her father was big in the church, did the offertory, led the offertory, did everything. He was prided himself that in this town, in this Catholic church, he was the head man for the priest. Anyway, she's 16. She's madly in love with this boy. She gets pregnant. Suddenly, her father hits her for the first time, slaps her in the house. And her mother is the one that knew. She didn't even know her mother knew. And she has to go live in her bedroom for 9 months. She was not allowed out of her room. Fed, everything, go out to the toilet, come there. Her father never spoke a word to her in 9 months. Not one word. He also stopped going to church. She ran away one night and ran 5 miles while literally, quite fully pregnant, to reach the boy, to see if they would take off together. The boy's mother answered the door and said, "The boy's been sent to Perth. You'll never see him again." And she had to walk home alone to a home that didn't want her. She gets the home. Anyway, finally, the only friend she has is the child growing inside her. And that's unwanted. Then she goes to hospital, and she has the baby, and they take it away. She's never allowed to see it. But there's a problem. What they would do in those days, before abortions, legal abortions, is they'd send a car up from Berry Street, which was the orphanage in Melbourne, I believe. I think they called it Berry Street. They'd send a big old car with a nurse, and the nurse would pick up the baby or babies, and they drive down to Berry Street, and their stories would begin. This day, they couldn't find a nurse. So they just walked in and said, "We can't get a nurse, so you're going to have to hold the baby." So suddenly this woman who hasn't seen the baby even from birth is now sitting in this car. Now, remember, she's given birth, so downstairs she's probably all damaged. No sympathy. She's sitting in this car with her son. And next to her is her father. And the driver, the father, and her drove in silence to Berry Street. 2-hour drive. When she said, I said, "What did you do when you were in the car?" She said, "I just looked at him." And she said, "He was so strong. He looked out the window. He looked at me. He just looked at me. He looked out the window. He never cried. Never cried. He just sat there silently looking." And she gets to Berry Street. They pull up. And a nurse comes out, opens the door. And suddenly the father goes, "Fuck off. Get the fuck away from that boy." And he goes to her, "Love, that's my grandson. That's your son. We're keeping him. You want to keep him, you'll keep him. We'll make it work. We'll make it work. It's up to you, love. It's up to you. If you want to keep it, we'll make it work." First thing he said to her in 9 months.
Amazing.
And she gave it away.
Oh,
She handed the baby over. And it was so painful to her and so impossible for her to repair that here she was sitting with this, 35-year-old, 36-year-old writer. She didn't know I was a writer. Someone who just showed her interest in this shitty nursing home. Yeah, out the back was all milk crates in the bins. And she's crying because the pain is still there.
yeah.
And so I put that into a play. And I remember it being on at La Mama. And there's all these people sitting there entranced, interested. I never knew who she was, so I could never tell her. But I thought, this is something out of this. There's a beauty to it. There's a beauty to it, to the tragedies of our lives. If God is real, and I believe he is, he's a writer. He's got a great sense of humor, but he loves his tragedies. He loves them.
Yeah.
He's a big one for the tragedies. The Greeks were right.
I think tragedy is necessary. I think a life absent adversity is a very shallow life. If I was given my time over again and I had to live through the same adversities that I have, I don't know whether I could do it. I certainly wouldn't want to do it. If I was forced to do it, I probably could. But it's the now, interestingly, you made a comment earlier about the scars on your heart, and you were talking about Rohanna and the kids, basically hiding your illness. And the thought that kept going through my mind was, do you know what their motivation was? Because it just felt in the moment to me like it was actually an act of love, that they were, And so I would want to feel
an act
that
of love on their part and an act of cowardice on my part that I let them do it for.
I get where you're coming from, but I would, if you were my client, I would be inviting you to change that very harsh self-judgment. And there's truth to that self-judgment. There is some cowardice involved in it when we don't do the thing that we would really want to do. But I would argue that there would be value for you in replacing that judgment of self-cowardice, at least partially, with some sort of genuine gratitude for them doing the best they could to love you in spite of you being different.
Yeah. Very challenging. Yeah, I do. I don't. They don't like me talking about them online, so I won't talk about them much anymore. I just wanted the public apology. But one thing I do know is Jordan Peterson said something about 5 or 6 years ago. He was, I think it was even before then. He was talking about the truth, and he said, "There you are. There's light. There's darkness." He says, every time you tell the truth, no matter what, he believes you tilt the world a degree towards lightness. Now, I don't know about tilting the world, but myself, the more honest I am with myself, the more I find the light healing and strengthening, and I get stronger for it. So I am much stronger now. I never have suicide thoughts like I used to have. Ever. No matter what happens now, I'm always thinking, okay, let's get through this. How do we solve it? So I'm much stronger now than I ever was, which is probably why I was able to do the video. Because no matter what, even if Cafe Lockdown closed down, they said, hey, this guy's a nutter. There's which is right. I was still thinking, where am I going now? But I was still thinking forward. I've got a little bit of life left. I want to live it. I want to milk it. And, so I'm in a good place. It's just stumbling blocks, which everyone has constantly. And there's always pressures of poverty and all manner of things, or getting in trouble in your job because you just want to speak, you just want to share the voice in your soul.
Compare those 20th and 21st century first world problems with what humanity's been through in the first 10 million years of its evolution. Exactly. There was, no one being nasty at work. It was just a saber-toothed tiger taking you away from the tribe.
That's right. And I don't think if you were sitting there watching the saber-toothed tiger thinking, how are we going to hunt this? If I suddenly told you, my daddy didn't love me, hey, I think you'd be going, huh? What?
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's why
and,
that's why the belief is that most of those ancient languages were mainly grunts. But
yeah. Well, one thing I would like to talk about in a future thing relating to this, and this is, I think, one of the real, this is like the canary in our coal mine to say that something is dreadfully wrong, is that we have a huge suicide problem for the lucky country. And it's about, like in Marooned, it's 3 men to 1 woman that takes their own life. And yet women attempted more, but ironically, men succeed more. But the real tragedy is how often, after the person leaves us, no one, even their family, knows why. That's how isolated this person was, either through the fear of what other people will think of me if I tell my truth or whatever. They're so isolated within this warm community that they leave, and we don't know why, which is the hardest thing for people to get over. And I think that when we talk about rebuilding a society, imagine a society where it was like you said to me the other day, this morning, where the stigma was gone, where we actually said, hey, we're humans. Life is hard, but wonderful, but hard. It's going to get tough. It's going to get really tough. But you know what the gods gave us to get through all the toughness? They gave us each other. That's what Maroon's about. They gave us each other so we can get through this. And so if we are brave enough to be open and honest, then who knows what will happen? Because one thing I have learned in my life, I haven't learned many lessons, but the one lesson I have learned, silence does not work. It just doesn't work that I've seen. People just go crazy within it. And I'm talking keeping these things hidden.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And
yes. So avoidance of speaking the truth is the silence that you're referring to, I think.
Yes, that's correct.
I think pure silence, the silence of self-reflection, and the silence that I give you if I ask you a difficult question, I think they're diamonds. They're really, really important. But the deceitful silence, I'm not going to speak because I'm self-censoring. That I think that's a corrosive kind of silence. And as difficult it is, interesting you cite Jordan Peterson and the truth. I disagree with Jordan Peterson on very few things, but I think in that instance he made assumptions about the truth which I think are too big and too dangerous. If ever I'm on thankfully the very few occasions in my career where I've been called on as some sort of an expert witness in courts or tribunals or whatever, they always say, do you promise to tell the truth? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And my response always is, I do so swear to the best of my ability. And none of them have ever questioned why I put that bit on the end. And it's because I know that I don't know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yeah.
I know my truth. And I know that that's not the whole truth. And I know that within my truth, there are some mistakes and some misunderstandings. And so for me to say that I'm some arbiter of the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth is crazy. But what I believe, what I think Peterson was alluding to was that we've got to do our best to speak the truth as we know it. So we don't self-censor, we don't lie. Now that to me is the path to light. I think that's what he was getting to, but he used the convenient handle of the truth in that example, and it deserves that tiny bit more expression because
I think he did acknowledge it later, like if his partner comes out and says, I don't know. Charlie Kirk was saying the same sort of things. It's interesting, but I do. We have this society, we have all this mineral wealth, abundant wealth. We don't have a war that's, not have soldiers in the street shooting us, even though, ironically, the suicide rate goes down in a war. there's I think mediocrity is is an unrecognized uh causality or cause of depression, where your senses get muted and the day
Yeah.
just becomes this. It was in my life,
Okay.
that's why I like moving constantly. I love
Yeah.
moving, seeing new sights.
When I
Yeah.
when I reflect on that observation from an evolutionary perspective, we've got nothing to worry about compared to our ancestors, and and I think we've got too much time, too much self-interest. We're a little bit greedy, and I think that's the potential breeding ground for depression and anxiety. That if we're doing what you do, which is, okay, I'm stepping out into the world and I'm going to make noble mistakes. I'm going to try and tilt at windmills. I'm going to try and lead as big and as good a life as I can, knowing that I'm going to fuck a lot of it up. And that is, I think that's what this 21st century wants us to evolve into, rather than saying, oh, what more can I get? How little do I have to give in order to get the most back? If we reverse that and say, if my boss is paying me for 40 hours a week, what would happen if I tried to give him 44 hours worth? Now, the bottom line is, if you see it as a noble sacrifice, I remember when I had employees, I finally got them to realize that their job security depended upon the success of my business.
Yeah.
Took over 2 years to get that through to them. And there were a number of strategies I used to do that. But once they realized that, and once they realized that all I was the middleman with the money, it was the people walking in the front door needing to get the service that we're offering. They were the people that were actually paying their wages. I was just the guy whose hands it went through first. And that little business just transformed. And and it ended up running like a Swiss watch. I was so proud of those. I only had 3 guys, but they were so dedicated. I used to have to interrupt them to make them have a lunch break. They'd say, no, I just got to finish this job. And I'd go, half an hour is not going to be the end of the world. But if you don't take your lunch break, then you're going to fall sick, and then I'm going to lose you for a week, and I can't afford to be without you. I'd rather lose you for half an hour than a week. And that happened 2 or 3 times a week. I'd have to take tasks in one of them. Now, those guys and I know it was a golden time in their lives as well, because the mutual trust and respect that little business generated just within the 4 of us was just so inspirational. And once you've experienced that, you want it for everybody. And you think to yourself, why is everybody being so shitty to each other? You're being paid good money to be at work. Why are you slacking off? And you're making good money out of your employees. Why aren't you nicer to them and more generous to them? But it's this adversarial, I want as much as I can get, and I don't care if you go broke doing it. It's just, it's madness.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, isn't it? There's, I do wish, if I had someone said to me, how would you see the world? If we were kinder to each other, to allow ourselves, that we weren't so much concerned about what other people thought of us. We do celebrate our heroes and do this. I remember one guy said to me once, Michael, I realize you're never going to get published. He's right about losers, mate. No one gives a fuck about losers. So why do you write about them? Oh, I don't know. I just like these stories. And but I do think this would be, because when I was in the trams, especially when I was first there was such beauty there. And the beauty was the men, there was nowhere to go. There was a few jobs you could get promoted, but nobody wanted them. These where they did the job, there was a purpose in driving people in the city, so you felt like you were taking a person from here and you were getting them there safely. They didn't even know you were doing it. But, they just got out of the tram and stuff. But So it's a small bit of purpose that you were helping, and so that gave the men purpose. The wage as well, so they're bringing back good money. Most of them never made love to their wives. They talk openly about it. Some 10, 12 years, never made love to their wives. Loveless, and so they spent most of their time here. But they were happy there because, as a guy called Frank said to me once, what this depot offers is you come up here and you've come out of the rest of the world trying to protect yourself, trying to be who you think people want you to be. And then you get here and you realize, because none of the men are wanting to get anywhere, they're just wanting to enjoy their time off away from the world and piss fart around with each other, that you can be yourself and you will find a groove and you'll be accepted in that groove. And that, for the first few years of the trams, before another French corporation came along and basically destroyed it.
Cleaned them out. Yeah.
For those 4 or 5 years, I'd never known such happiness amongst men. It really taught me about men. And what was really interesting, just to finish, there was men who'd been there for 40 years or more. And I used to talk to them about it. So these are mostly mature males, high suicide rate. And in 40 years, there had not been one suicide.
Yeah. And the tragedy is that until that French company took over, that almost accidental phenomenon was a contented, productive, and competent group of workers.
Yeah, they worked really hard. They liked their job.
But the bean counters have taken over the world, and they see competent, comfortable, satisfied workers as a threat. They feel that they need their workers. Yeah.
And they actually like the job. They have standards, and they don't want you to have standards. Just come in. Like I saw in New York today, restaurants in New York are using computer screens with Filipinos earning $3 an hour in the Philippines to basically take orders. So they're not even employing New Yorkers now. So this is it. It's money, money, money. But anyway, I might start to wrap it up. I'm going to end with a new song called Always Believe in Love. This is something I wrote to myself in a depression a few months back, but it's based on real stories that people have told me. And it's a way I've always tried to, because I really do believe in love. And I don't mean like just true love with a partner. I mean love for each other. I think the reason we've survived and prospered so much as a species and why there's so many of us is not because we hate each other. It's not because we kill each other. It's love.
Yep, totally agree. Looking forward to hearing it, Michael.
Yeah. I love you, man. Thank you for coming on today.
Mate.
And we'll get back in 2 weeks. If you want to reach out
I got a list this long that we didn't get to.
Okay, next show is yours. Whatever you want to talk about. Whatever you want to talk. I'll just sit here and look pretty. That's it. We'll do it. Keep that thing. Yeah, anything you want. And if you want to come out and reach to us, if you have questions that you'd like to put to Lindsay, he'll be back in Thursday for 2 weeks from now. Get in touch. I think he'd love it.
Yep,
and and we just want to help. We need, and this is it, because if we love each other and we value each other and respect each other, then we might stand a chance. Yeah.
Beautiful, mate.
No worries.
See you later.
Thank
everybody.
you, Lindsay. And thanks to everyone for all your support, including you, Christian, for all your support. But I'm good. And we're just getting ourselves back together and moving forward. So this is Always Believe in Love. If you're depressed, try listening to this. It does say Michael a lot, so it's going to stick in your head. So sorry about that. Take care. See you.
After your brother died, you didn't have to bother with me. I'd fucked up again until every bridge should have been in flames. But as I was packing up what little remained, the phone rang and it was you. And although you never spoke the actual words, what you said to me was, Michael, always believe in love. Oh, Michael. Oh, Michael. I watched you walk down my streets together, you in the front of your man, lost in your boy. You're speaking a language of pausing across the road or sorting the shopping items each will carry home. And although you have never noticed me, I can hear you both whispering. And you are whispering to me, Michael. Oh, Michael. Oh, Michael. Oh, Michael. Always believe in love. You were singing on the stage with your sisters, dancing to some rainbow fairy tale. Your voices were all small and out of time. Still we pressed record and held up our candle phones, for despite the flames of our burning world, we could all hear the angels singing. Oh, Michael. 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 Always believe in love. We're alone and lost somewhere on Facebook. There's a gorilla loving a fallen human child, and we're all wrestling with shadows while wondering if inside the dark we will finally find the flower that perpetually grows. Oh, Michael. Garden our gods call. Oh, Michael. Oh, Michael. Oh, Michael. Oh, Michael. Oh, Michael. Oh, Michael. Always believe in love.